The hospital room hummed with the steady rhythm of machines. Monitor lights blinked in patterns of green and amber, casting soft glows across sterile walls. In the bed lay a man in his mid-30s, dark hair, strong features, completely still. The chart at the foot of his bed read, James Crawford Coma, Day 47. But James wasn't in a coma. Not anymore. He'd woken 3 days ago, consciousness returning like a slow sunrise. But something made him stay silent, eyes closed, breathing steady. Perhaps it was exhaustion from the accident that had landed him here. Perhaps it was curiosity about the world that thought he couldn't hear. Mostly, though, it was because of her. Dr. Elena Martinez came every day. She was around 30, with long brown hair that caught the light and eyes that held both intelligence and warmth. She wore her white coat over blue scrubs, a stethoscope around her neck like a badge of her calling. James had been awake for her morning rounds all 3 days. She always checked his vitals with gentle hands, speaking to him softly even though she believed he couldn't hear. "Good morning, Mr. Crawford," she'd say. "It's Thursday. Cold outside, but the sun's shining. I thought you'd want to know." Other doctors rushed through. Nurses were efficient but distant. But Elena treated him like a person, not a patient. She told him about the weather, about hospital gossip, about small things that made the world feel real. James had built a fortune in real estate by the age of 35. He'd grown accustomed to people wanting something from him, money, connections, opportunities. Even before the accident, he'd been lonely in ways wealth couldn't fix. But Elena didn't know who he was. To her, he was just another patient in bed 7. On this particular evening, Elena came in for her late shift. James heard her footsteps, the soft close of the door. Through his closed eyelids, he sensed the room's light dimming as she adjusted it for night. She began her usual routine, checking monitors, adjusting his IV. Her movements were practiced but never careless. Then she did something unexpected. She pulled up a chair and sat beside his bed. "I probably shouldn't do this," she said quietly. "It's not professional, but I think you'd understand if you could hear me." James kept his breathing steady, his face relaxed. "I became a doctor because my little brother was sick," Elena continued, her voice soft in the quiet room. "Leukemia. He was only 12. I spent so much time in hospitals watching doctors work. Some were brilliant but cold, others were kind but helpless." She paused. James could hear her breathing, steady but emotional. The doctor who cared for Danny, though, he was different. Dr. Phillips. He treated Danny like he mattered, like his dreams and fears were important, not just his white blood cell count. Even when there was no hope left, Dr. Phillips sat with us. He held my mother's hand. He cried with us. Elena's voice grew thicker. "Danny didn't make it. But Dr. Phillips showed me what healing really means. It's not always about curing. Sometimes it's just about being present, about seeing the person, not the illness." James felt something tighten in his chest. This woman, who knew nothing of his wealth or status, was sharing her deepest truth with someone she thought couldn't hear. "You've been here 47 days, Mr. Crawford," Elena said. "Your file says you're a successful businessman, important, wealthy. But I don't care about that. To me, you're a man who's fighting to come back. And I want you to know that someone's here, waiting for you. Someone who believes you're still in there." She stood, and James felt her hand rest gently on his. "Don't give up," she whispered. "The world needs you. Someone out there loves you. Come back to us." Her footsteps retreated. The door closed softly. James lay in the darkness, his heart pounding. For 3 days he'd been deceiving her, playing a role. But this felt different now, wrong somehow. He thought about his life before the accident, the endless meetings, the deals, the people who smiled but never really saw him. He'd been successful but invisible, surrounded by people yet profoundly alone. Elena had seen him. Not the millionaire, not the businessman. Just a human being worth fighting for. The next morning, when Elena came for her rounds, James made a decision. As she checked his chart, he slowly opened his eyes. Elena gasped, dropping her pen. "Mr. Crawford? James? Can you hear me?" He managed a weak nod, his voice rusty from disuse. "Yes." Her eyes filled with tears. "Oh my God. Let me get the other doctors." "Wait," he whispered. "Please." She stopped, concerned. "What is it? Are you in pain?" "I heard you," James said quietly. "Last night, what you said about your brother, about being present." Elena's face went pale. "You were awake? But the scans—" "I woke up 3 days ago," James admitted. "I should have said something. I'm sorry. I needed to understand what was real." He expected anger. Instead, Elena sat down slowly, processing. "You've been conscious for 3 days?" she asked. "Yes. And in that time, you were the only person who treated me like a human being. Everyone else saw a patient, a case number, a wealthy man in a hospital bed. You saw me." Elena was quiet for a long moment. "I shared something very personal with you, thinking you couldn't hear." "I know. And I'm sorry I deceived you. But what you said, it meant more than you can imagine." James struggled to sit up. Elena instinctively helped him, her doctor's training overriding her confusion. "I built an empire," James continued, "but I forgot to build a life. I was surrounded by people who wanted my money, my influence, my connections. No one wanted just me. Until you." Elena's eyes softened. "I didn't know who you were." "Exactly. You cared because that's who you are. Because your brother taught you, and Dr. Phillips taught you, that every person matters." She studied him carefully. "You could have kept pretending. Why tell me now?" "Because you deserve the truth. And because I don't want to live behind walls anymore." James looked at her directly. "You said someone out there loves me. I don't think that's true. But I'd like to know the person who could see worth in a stranger." Elena smiled slightly. "That sounds suspiciously like a line, Mr. Crawford." "James, please. And it's not a line. It's a hope." Over the following weeks, as James recovered, something unexpected grew between them. Elena remained professional, but they really talked, about life, loss, purpose, and meaning. James learned about her mother's flower shop, her student loans, her small apartment with the leaky faucet. He told her about building his business from nothing, about losing himself in success, about how a car accident had paradoxically saved his life by helping him see what mattered. When James was discharged, he asked Elena to dinner. She hesitated. "I need to know this isn't gratitude," she said, "or some wealthy man's whim." "It's neither," James said. "It's a man who heard truth in the darkness and wants to live in the light, with someone who already knows his heart." 6 months later, James sold his company. He started a foundation in Danny's name, funding compassionate care programs in hospitals. Elena helped design the training, teaching doctors to see patients as people. They married the following spring, in a small ceremony at her mother's flower shop. At the reception, Elena's mother pulled James aside. "My daughter told me what you did, pretending to be unconscious." James braced himself for judgment. Instead, she smiled. "Sometimes we have to be still and quiet to hear what's true. Elena's been talking to patients like they can hear her since she was a resident. I'm glad someone finally was listening." James looked across the room at his wife, dancing with a young patient from the children's ward, both of them laughing. He'd spent his life building walls. Elena had simply walked through them, seeing not his wealth or status, but his humanity. Sometimes the most valuable things can't be bought. They can only be recognized, cherished, and returned. And sometimes, you have to stop pretending to be something you're not, to become who you truly are.